children, I hope you have gone through my previous video, and today we will continue further. We have already studied about osmosis, diffusion, tonicity. Now today we will study about active transport. You know that roots absorb water as well as nutrients. Now passage of substances such as salt or iron from its lower to its higher concentration through a living membrane using energy from the cell is called as active transport. For diffusion, osmosis, energy was not being required, extra energy, but here the solute is moving from its lower concentration to its higher concentration. Now there are certain nutrients such as sulfates, potassium, zinc, manganese, nitrates, which cannot pass through the cell membrane of root cells easily because their concentration is higher inside the cell, inside the root cell. So in order to and this is for maintaining a high osmotic pressure so that water can be absorbed. So the concentration gradient of these ions is opposite to that of diffusion. In other words, these ions have to be forcibly carried inward from region of their lower concentration, which is outside, to the region of their higher concentration, which is inside the root cell. And for this energy is supplied by the cell in the form of ATP. Next is passive transport. Passive is nothing different from diffusion. Passive means without any energy. So free movement of molecules from their higher concentration to the lower concentration is passive transport. Solute molecules here are moving. Next term is turgidity and flaccidity. So first we see what is turgid. Now every living plant cell is in contact with fluids, and root hair cells particularly, they are in contact with soil water. So when a cell, when a cell reaches a state, that water will move from its high concentration towards its lower concentration. That means if water in the soil is more, it will move inside the cell. Now when cell reaches a state where it cannot accommodate any more water, it is fully distended, then it is called as turgid, and the condition is called turgidity. Its wall is stretched from pressure from inside, and the cell contents, they are pressed towards the center of the cell. The pressure of the cell contents on the cell wall is called as turgor pressure, and the pressure exerted by the cell wall on the cell content is called as wall pressure. Now if the cell wall is unable to bear the turgor pressure, that means if turgor pressure becomes more than the wall pressure, then the cell will rupture. All the contents of the cell will burst out. This is what happens sometimes in fruits and vegetables. Now when the cell is turgid, it is in somewhat balanced state. No water will enter it, nor will it leave the cell. So therefore further absorption of water, even though concentration of solute inside the cell may be greater than that outside the cell, will not take place. So this condition is called as turgid. Now next is, if you see the figure over here, this is a figure of a plant cell showing osmotic pressure, turgor pressure and wall pressure together. See over here, the arrows here, this is the arrow which wall is, this is the pressure that wall is exerting on the cell content. So this is wall pressure. Osmotic pressure, the water is entering inside, so because of that there is a osmotic pressure. Cell contents are applying pressure on the wall. See these downward arrows. So this is the turgor pressure. So this is a diagram representing all these three types of pressures. Now next we come to plasmolysis and placidity. If a cell of a leaf of an aquatic plant is placed in fresh water, it remains fully distended condition. Okay, why does it remain in fully distended condition? Because fresh water has less amount of solutes, so water concentration outside is more than inside the cell, and water will enter the cell. Now the plasma membrane will remain in close contact with cell wall and press against it like a rubber bladder of a football. Now if instead of fresh water the same cell is kept in 5% salt solution for few minutes, what will happen? It will lose its distended appearance and it will shrink. Plasma membrane will withdraw from the cell. See over here the plasma membrane has withdrawn from the cell. So this condition where the shrinkage of cell contents has taken from the cell wall, this is said to be plasmolysis, and the state of the cell is called as placid. The condition of the cell is called as placidity. So placidity, actually if you look at it, it is the reverse of turgidity. If a plasmolysed cell, see this is the plasmolysed cell, if it is again put in fresh water before it dies, then the recovery of the cell will take place and the cell will again assume its distended position. So this process will then be called as deplasmolysis. Returning the plasmolysed cell back into fresh water, water from outside will enter into the cell contents will get their normal shape back, and this is called as deplasmolysis. So what is turgidity? It is state of cell in which cell wall is rigid, stretched due to absorption of water. The cell is then said to be turgid. Plasmolysis, the cytoplasm contracts from the cell wall due to withdrawal of water when placed in a hypertonic solution which has more concentration of solutes. And what is placidity? It is a condition in which cell contents are shrunken and cell is no more tight, no more distended. Then it is said to be placid. Okay, so these terms are clear to you. Next, let's move further. Next topic is, what are the uses of turgidity to plants? Now turgidity first uses, it provides rigidity to soft tissues. Which are the soft tissues of the plant? Like leaf is soft. So when there is not enough water in the leaf, what will happen? It wilts. Its petiole and lamina, they become loose and the leaf droops down. So wilting of leaves, especially during the afternoon, hot afternoons, is due to this reason. What happens in the afternoons, especially in summers, hot afternoons, water is being lost from the plant through transpiration, and that much amount of water is not being absorbed by the roots. So there is deficiency of water and they wilt. In the evening, when transpiration becomes less and the quantity of water absorbed becomes more than that lost, so again the leaves become turgid. Okay, in practice, plasmolysis is being used for salting of meat or addition of salts to pickles. What does plasmolysis do in that case? Water is drawn out and bacterial cells are killed, so the food does not get spoiled. Another example for plasmolysis is that weeds can be killed in a playground by sprinkling excessive salts around their base. So all the water from inside the weeds will come out and the weeds will die. Okay, now we come back to the turgidity. Turgor pressure it helps to provide rigidity to soft tissues. Second application is, uses, that it helps to push through hard ground. For example, in mushroom, sometimes root of certain trees, they are seen to crack through the walls of concrete floors. This is due to turgor pressure. See here, a germinating seed germinates due to turgor pressure. It breaks through the seed coat and the radicle and plumule comes out. So this is another use of turgidity. Next use is, it helps to build up root pressure. Now if you cut a plant, well watered potted plant, suppose take the balsam plant, and a few centimeter above the soil you cut it and add a tube to it, and then this tube, through a rubber connection, water starts coming out of it, of its stem, and let it be connected to a glass tube. So the rising water can raise the mercury filled in connected manometer. We have connected this manometer to this. We have added a rubber tube and glass tube. So, and we have cut this plant from its stem. Initial reading of the manometer was this, and after cutting it, you will find that the water level in the manometer, see from here, it has been raised to this level. So this rising of water, of mercury in the manometer, that is showing that upward flow of water is taking place due to heavy pressure from the roots. This pressure is called as root pressure. So root pressure is a pressure developed in roots due to continued inward movement of water through cell to cell osmosis, and this helps in ascent of sap upward through the stem. So due to root pressure, the cell sap can rise in the tube up to certain height only. Loss of water through cut stem is also called as bleeding. Next use of turgidity in plants is that it helps in opening and closing of stomata. You know, stomata are present in the leaves, and stomata, they have guard cells and stoma. So about stomata you have studied in class 9, and opening and closing of the guard cells, that depends upon turgidity of guard cell. Guard cells have thicker wall on the side facing the stoma and thin wall on the opposite side, and they contain chloroplast. Now because they contain chloroplast, photosynthesis takes place, glucose is formed, and chemical changes also take place. So because of that, the pressure, osmotic pressure of the contents of guard cell increases, and they absorb more water from neighboring cells. So they become more arched outwards, and the aperture becomes wide, and the stomata opens. At night, when there is shortage of water in the leaf, the guard cells become flaccid, and the inner walls of the glass guard cells, they become straight, and the stomata is closed. Next is turgor moment. Drooping of the leaves of sensitive plant like Mimosa pudica is an example of turgor moment. So this happens that when the leaf is touched even slightly, even for 2 to 3 seconds, then the folding of leaves and drooping takes place. Then after the touch is removed, the leaves again recover and they stand erect. So the stimulus of touch leads to loss of turgor at the base of leaflets and at the base of petioles, called pulvinus. Now somewhat similar turgor movements are found in insectivorous plants which entrap a living prey. Even there are certain plants which bend towards, the flowers of which bend towards the sun, and the sleepy movement of the leaves of certain plants at night, they are also due to turgor pressure. Now next we come to root pressure. Root pressure is due to cell osmosis. Now see, when the water enters the root through the soil, so how does it enter? What is the pathway of this water? This is shown in this diagrammatic cross section of a root, and through the arrow, cell to cell conduction of water is being depicted. From one turgid cell, the water passes to another turgid cell, and water passes from one turgid cell to other turgid cell, and it reaches the xylem vessels. The water in plants is conducted through xylems, and it enters the pores of the thick walls with force. Root pressure is one of the forces which raises the water up through the stem into the leaves, but it cannot push water up to the top of the tall trees on its own. It takes help of other forces. Several forces combined together push water up to that. Next is guttation. In certain plants like tomato, grass, banana, ferns, the root pressure is high enough to force water up to the stem and come out from the end of the leaves or through the veins of the leaves. See over here, from the leaf veins and ends, water is oozing out as tiny drops. So this is called as guttation. Especially in early morning, this can be seen. Next, we come to a few experiments. Okay, to show that absorption and conduction of water is done in plants by roots. The first experiment over here. See, we have taken a beaker and through it we have taken a test tube, and in that we have filled it with water, and the upper surface we have covered with a layer of oil. In the other test tube, again we have taken water, we have put a small plant in it, and again in this also we have put a few drops of oil. Okay, now why the oil has been put? Both the test tubes have equal level of water, and we have put a plant in it. Now why oil has been put? Because oil will prevent loss of water through evaporation. Now you will find after some time that in the first test tube there is no change in the level of water, but in the second test tube the level of water falls. So why this level of water falls? Because water which was in the test tube was absorbed by the roots. Alright, so this proves that roots absorb water. So we'll take another experiment, the second experiment. In this is to show that water is conducted through xylem tissue. So we have taken a medium sized plant, uprooted it and placed it in a beaker containing stained eosine solution. Eosine is pink in color. Now we submerge the roots completely in water and leave it for 3 to 4 hours. At the end of this period, plant is taken out and washed, and then a transverse section of the root, stem and leaves is made and examined under the microscope. You will see over here the transverse section. In each of these transverse sections, the xylem tissue is seen as red color. So that is because this red color solution was taken up by xylem. So this proves that xylem conducts water. Now next, another experiment, to show conduction of water by xylem. Third experiment, what we have done, we have taken 2 plants over here. Okay, 2 leafy shoots have been taken and placed in beaker with their lower ends dipped in water. Now from the first one we have first one, outer ring of the stem is removed. Outer ring, see, in the first case outer ring is removed. Now outer ring comprises of phloem, so only xylem is there. In the second one, inner ring is removed and only the outer one is here. So phloem is there, xylem is missing. Okay, this type of ringing experiment is also called as griddling. So the shoots are fixed to stands. They are allowed to remain there for 2 days and look at their lower ends immersed in water. After the 2 days, it will be found that the leaves of the first plant, they are normal, but leaves of the second beaker, they have wilted. Why? Because there is no xylem, so water is not reaching up to the leaves. So this again proves that xylem tissue conducts water. Now next experiment is to show that food from leaf is conducted downwards through phloem. Again, cut a ring around the stem of a healthy potted plant, okay, through girdling, and in this the phloem has been removed but xylem has not been removed. Okay, it will be seen that the sap starts oozing from the farther cut margin of the stem, showing that sap in peripheral parts flows in downward direction. Okay, after few weeks it is observed that the part of stem above the ring has grown in diameter. See, it has become wider, broader, but the part below may even die and it has definitely stopped growing. So this shows that for supply of food, phloem is needed. So these are the experiments. Now there are certain forces contributing to ascent of sap. Like I told you, in case of a very tall plant, it is not possible for root pressure to alone be able to send water up to the tips of the plant. So root pressure, capillarity, transpiration pull, adhesion, these are the 4 main forces which contribute to upward movement of ascent of sap. Root pressure builds up force to push the sap in xylem vessel up to a certain height. Capillarity means a narrow diameter of xylem vessels causes the water from lower level to rise up to like a vacuum by loss of water due to transpiration from leaves, and this force is called as capillary force. Then there is transpirational pull. Throughout, water is being lost from the leaves in the form of vapor, this through a process called transpiration, and the leaves then become devoid of water. So from lower cells which have more water, water is pushed up to the higher cells having less water. This is called as transpiration pull. And adhesion. Adhesion is the quality of water molecule to stick to each other. So in this way they are drawn upwards from below when the leaf cell loses water through transpiration. So all this together contributes to ascent of sap. Alright, so now what I want you to do is go through the question answers given behind this chapter.